that shit. Listen, ayy, look, cash flowing, pockets growing, wake up, bless every morning. Just in case y'all didn't notice, I'm the fucking shit up in this bitch and everybody knows it. Cash flowing, pockets growing, wake up, bless every.
Welcome back to What's the Situation podcast. I'm Sydney, and I'm super excited about the episode that we have today. Today, we've got our guest, Catherine Ferrell, my cousin. We run the Gatorbug Boutique together, and Catherine also represents this amazing clothing line. And we've got Jackie Serany with Home for Entertaining. Jackie is the director of retail for her family's business, and I just love these ladies so much. So today, we're going to be talking about business, which is such an important part of all of our lives. So we're going to jump into the situation room. And I thought about what we would talk about for this topic. And I was like, for Jackie, we've got to do something Taylor Swift and Colleen Hoover.
Here's my Taylor books. I don't know where my Colleen books are right now, but they're back there, I promise.
So what's your take on This Ends With Us, the Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, Justin Baldoni?
I think Taylor's thinking, can this just go away?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that would be like gut reaction. And I think that she wants to have her friends back in a huge project that she did for her career, but at the same time is like, hey, maybe that wasn't so cool. Maybe we shouldn't have done this. Like, I would hope that she's saying, how can we learn from this?
Taylor's PR team has been like, we do not want you to touch this. Don't even get involved. You're not inviting her to the Super Bowl, which is a great PR move. From a business standpoint, I don't know if you've dug into the whole story, but Blake came out and said during these scenes that there was sexual harassment, and Justin came out with receipts and he killed their whole argument. But I love his lawyer because his lawyer is like, we're going to bury them.
That really surprised me and made it interesting, but I agree. You have to peel back the layers because there's a lot to it.
I'm going to be honest. I didn't watch the movie. Sorry. I didn't watch it.
I didn't either.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys went to the showing, didn't you?
You're going to make fun of me because you say the book sucks, but the book was better than the movie.
I thought the way that they released the lawsuit, it was months after, it just doesn't look good.
And it's also, I think that the lawsuit then glossed over the fact that, I did dig into this, whether it was how she was contracted to promote the movie or how she chose to promote the movie as go see it with your girlfriends, all this flowery fun stuff. It was not that kind of movie.
I mean, a lot of people were up in arms because they felt like she used it as a marketing tactic for her brands, that she really wanted to get involved, that she took over from her lawsuit. And kind of what she said was Justin and the other director on it were very non-open to hearing her edits on things. And when he dropped those receipts, that wasn't the case at all. And so I think that's the damning part. And then she really used, I think the whole storyline and the promotion and marketing to really push her brands forward. And people were like, I mean, even Justin was like, this is not what that is. And it just, I don't know who her PR team is, but they missed the mark on that. Yeah. Okay. So now I'm really excited to go into the Help Me Sid, what's your situation? So a couple people wrote in and they really wanted to know, do you recommend mixing family and business? I can tell you our situation.
Yeah.
So background, a little bit about our situation. Catherine and I are cousins, but we were raised very much so like sisters, and we're very similar, but so different. Running a business, I think, with family is just so difficult because you're balancing business where you can't take things personally and family where everything that comes back is very personal. Jackie, tell us a little bit about yours because you guys also have a family business.
Oh my gosh. Our family business started as not indirect family business, but we never set out to be okay, we're going to start a family business. My mom's an interior designer and has been for over 20 years. And
Jackie's mom is the coolest, by the way. I love Vicky.
My mom loves Sydney so much.
She's awesome.
She really tells me this. But she's been an interior designer and found that she would finish these beautiful, huge homes and then have her clients calling her asking for help hosting a bridal shower or asking how they should set their table for Thanksgiving. And our family has just always loved hosting and bringing people together. So she came up with the idea of, what if we start a place that just helps people enjoy entertaining? But she floated the idea to me and my brother. And mind you, she's floated a lot of ideas to me and my brother over the years, including multiple times asking each of us if we wanted to be an interior designer to take over the business. Which
She's like, please, someone.
Please, are you sure? And we continue to say no, thank you. So she floated this idea, and I really think she was expecting us to be like, no, thank you. But we're like, that actually sounds really cool. And she's like, oh, okay. Next thing we know, we're on family vacation with Brian's new at the time girlfriend. They had not even been dating a year. And we were on family vacation at the beach, waking up and doing business plans every morning. And all I could think was, this girl is never going to come back to anything. I was like, we are going to
scared her off.
Away. Like, this is not normal. This is weird. Here we are. It's me and her who have left our existing jobs, and the two of us are full-time in the family business.
So, like, for you personally, what do you feel like has been like a really hard thing to kind of like work through?
I think
working with family.
Staying with family, for good or for bad, you know each other's quirks and you know what buttons to push.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's the really fun double-edged sword, because without saying too much, you can like look at someone who's family and just be like, I can't do this today. And they're like, okay. And like, they've got it. They've got your back.
Yeah.
At the same time, we joke that I'm the crier, and it's usually my brother making me cry without even meaning to. So like, that not taking it personally is the hardest part.
Usually the one in our group making us cry is Dawn.
My mom.
This is my take on it. Okay, so in our relationship, I'm the older one, so I've always felt very protective over Catherine on things. But like, also, we are so different, so we fight. Like, when we were younger, we used to just do shit to try to piss each other off. So it's like, at the heart of it, we have each other's backs. But when you run a business, it's so personal too, because I feel like there's so many things over the last 5 years that we've really, we've got into some big, like, family altering disagreements, things where everybody was walking on eggshells. Our family's so close knit, like, we only have each other. I think learning how to balance that relationship out with your family, where you're like, hey, listen, like, as a business, these are things that we need to think about or do. And when we disagree about things, how we're going to talk to each other about that. That's something I think both of us have really had to go through some growing pains on, because there's a lot of times I loved Catherine. I'm sure she probably feels the same way, but I didn't like her in those moments, and vice versa. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. To touch on what you said, you are the older cousin. You know, Sydney is 5 years older. She has matured a lot faster. We started this business when I was 24. And you go through so much life and learning. I'm 30 now. And I would say by the time I hit 28 and then 29 and 30, I have become more effective in communicating. But man, I wasn't in the early years of our business, and it was hard.
I definitely think we were both at we've always been at very different levels of our life. Yes. I was forced to become an adult very young, from the age of like 17, running out the gate. Catherine's had a little more comfortability on that level, but I definitely think just how we interact with each other now is night and day difference from when we first started.
Oh, absolutely. I think we had to go through that to get where we are now. And do I wish I could take back things I said and decisions that were made? Oh, absolutely. I think this is all a part of our learning experiences as family, but also business owners. And I think that's taken me a second too, of knowing when to cut on that she's my business partner and she's not family in the moment. Of course, she's still family, but not at that moment. And then cutting that familial switch back on has been so pivotal, and it has been so helpful, I think, with navigating our business. I don't take things personally as much, because I know if Sydney is making an executive decision, it's for the betterment. And I think I would hope she feels the same. And it's been a beautiful thing. I think we know how
to draw our boundaries in a respectful way rather than taking it personally. Yeah. And we've had to work with other third-party people to be able to, hey, this is not how this works. You guys are seeing it differently. But do I recommend family and business? I think you have to be incredibly respectful of each other.
So we are coming up on a year and a half of being open and about 2.5 years of being in like the planning process. And that first year is rough. Like, I've said it and I will continue to say it. My friends who stuck with me for that first year, they only did because they knew they'd only see me if they were coming to the shop or texting me. Like, and that was
I've taken 3 pasta classes.
And have you ever made pasta at home?
No.
We're gonna work on that. Okay. So anyway, first year, chaos. And we truly found that we were doing nothing as a family, which sounds crazy because we were with each other 7 days a week, 1,000,000 hours a day. But it was only like they were saying, cutting like on and off that like business, family, business, family. We were all business. Everyone's on edge. So we operate, this could be a whole different tangent, but we operate on a business platform plan called EOS, and it has all of these business planning and goals and targets. But the one thing we do is every quarter you each have your rocks, and they're like your biggest things you're working on for the quarter. So our last quarter of 2024, my brother's rock was family fun. That once a month we were going to do something as a family, not at the store, not talking about work.
Yeah.
But it took making that a priority again to literally go out to eat. And we went to the Chinese Lantern Festival. Like,
I love that.
Do something that wasn't work because it was so overwhelming. Like, you weren't seeing them anymore as your sibling, your parents. It was, we would always joke, we're like, oh, the finance team.
I agree with all of that stuff. If we're getting raw and into it, which
absolutely.
I like to get into, it was just a really difficult time. Everybody felt split because they felt like if we disagreed on something, they had to take a side.
Yeah.
And you really have to draw those lines. It even happens where you don't even realize you're bringing people into these things. You're just venting. But the people that you're venting to are the people who are also your family, part of the business. She would go and talk to her mom. And my aunt is very much so like my sounding board on things. And so everyone's stuck in the middle. And then they would get involved into things on how they thought things should roll. And then it puts a different pressure on things. I'm just thinking probably in the last year or two, like we've figured out how to work like with each other, on a level that's okay. No one else is involved. If we have an issue, maybe it'll take a little while to get around to it because we want to be like delicate with that. But we've had to really exclude everybody else from those topics because I feel like it just pegged everybody against each other. And it's hard because you're not even like meaning to.
No, I think that that's made me more conscientious too, talking with my husband and my parents of, I like to highlight the good. I don't talk about the bad. That's something that's shared by Sydney and I and the leadership team in our company. And that's it. And it's honestly made my relationships a lot healthier. And I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
And that's so important. And it's allowed us to grow too, which is the added benefit.
So would you recommend getting into business with your family?
I still think yes. I think it's crazy. Like, it's a lot. But at the end of the day, you all do know that you're genuinely on the same team. And everyone truly does want the best for each other. So.
And you're going to have each other's back. With business, it's something that family that you can trust. Like I said, Catherine and I can talk shit to each other, but if anyone starts any issues with her, I will beat your ass. I'm putting this out there. I will beat your ass.
I feel the same too.
Again, just touch on it, navigate it, separate business from family and focus on time with your family and not just let it all be about business because one day you're going to realize it's just not worth it. You cannot be business 100%. What advice do you have, Jackie?
I think stealing what you had said, not taking everything personally, which if my family hears this, they're going to be like, okay, next time I start crying, they're going to remind me of this. But I think just remembering not to take it personally when it is the business side of things.
So let's get into the meat of it. Situation unfiltered. Okay. So I feel like this is all about business, but I tried to really think of things that would like hit home in a general sense. Imposter syndrome. So many people wrote about this. And I have mixed feelings on this because we're all young women running businesses, and a lot of people are uncomfortable with that. It's another layer into the onion of feeling like you don't belong.
Absolutely.
Catherine, let's start with you. How do you feel about that?
Oh, yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head there. We're all young women, and people are just watching you, waiting for you to mess up and fail. And there's a lot of competition too in business, and we're all in retail, and there's a lot of competition in the market.
Well, when you open up a business, there's different realms for marketing, but one is print advertisement. And with a magazine in the area, I don't know if you guys have been approached, but it's 30 under 30 or women in business, and you have to advertise. Like, you're literally paying to be on there. And I've always felt so weird about that. I always thought that it was like they're highlighting these businesses, and it's not that at all. So it even made me feel even more like we're literally paying to seem like we are big. So what would you say was the moment that you felt like you were pretending to be something you're not?
Yeah, it almost feels like you're not in your own skin to a degree. And I feel like the first year of our business was all out survival. I'm be honest. It was.
We learned so much.
We were tired. I don't think I have ever experienced such a level of exhaustion than we did in our first year of business. And I'm glad for that. But, I think it really, the second year to like going into our fourth year in business, I didn't feel myself. I think I was doing the most growing in my mid to late 20s, but I felt like I had to fake it, and not in a good way. I felt like I had to be somebody that probably wasn't who Catherine is at the core. There was a touch of Catherine, but it wasn't all of me. And that was, looking back, that's kind of hard. It's sad to see.
And I feel like I had already had mine way earlier. By the time we got here, there were certain things that, like, obviously I hadn't had like hands-on with like the apparel side. So I had to fake that side, not fake it, but learn that side more. But I had already had my imposter syndrome earlier in life. Jackie, I don't know if you can speak to this too, is like, I feel like when you own a business, people automatically feel like when they're contacting you, you know what you're doing on all this stuff. And then you gotta like be like, yes,
I do have all the answers.
Yes. And honestly, I feel like I get the imposter syndrome more on those situations than anything that's like out in public or out at events. Megan, my sister-in-law, and I that are full-time in the business both come from an education background. I was a math teacher, and then I worked for an educational technology company doing implementation and sales. Nothing about retail or tabletop or any of those things. And Megan was an elementary school teacher. There's times.
So you guys are really rolling with it.
We are rolling with it. Like,
make it till you make it, babe.
We're like, okay, we'll go to some event if someone invited us. We might question if they accidentally invited us, but we'll go and talk to people. But when someone calls and starts asking us about these very intricate questions about hosting an event or a line of fine china, we're looking at each other. Who let us do this? Like, who's the adult in the room? We're just like, oh, okay. Let me find an answer. Let me work on that. And I think that's the hardest part, is knowing that you love what you're doing. The business is doing well overall. People like it and come to you knowing and believing in you. And then in the background, you're just like, oh, what's happening? What am I supposed to do? I think that's been the hardest thing, but it's also conversations like this and with a few of our other friends who are in business that everyone's like that, where everyone to some extent is like, I don't actually know what to do.
So we have another friend, Jacqueline, who is an amazing photographer. And she is also a preschool director. Yeah, she does all the things.
All the things.
But she had come over the other day to do my branding photos, and I was just talking. I'm like, how, like, for lighting, like for all the different things, like, how did you start this? And she's like, you kind of just go with it. And she's like, I've looked back at like my work from before and was like, oh my God, like all this stuff could have been different. When I feel like you learn so much. And I think I probably really went through my imposter syndrome when I was working for Berkshire for the property management.
Ooh.
So it was a luxury apartment community. I had worked in property management for a couple of years before, but worked on B-class properties, but nothing in the luxury. I had just been through my divorce. One of my friends who I worked with over at another company was a property manager, and she'd like, come to this property, be my assistant manager. I knew enough about property management. I've been in that game for like several years, but when you go into those luxury properties, it's a whole different ballgame because you are like the people who own NFL teams. The kids are living there, like basketball players, literally billionaires' children. Like I was meeting with security teams, like family security teams and stuff like that. And my boss had gotten promoted and she's like, I really want you to get a property manager gig. And so for a couple months, they were like, we're not going to hire anybody. We just want to see. And she's like, you need to prove yourself. So for like 24/7, I just worked. I didn't know, guys, when I tell you, I did not know how to use an Excel spreadsheet. I did not even know how to use the sum button. Okay. I did not know that there was a function that actually summed that up. Okay. I did not pay attention in computer class at all. So I had to learn everything. That I feel like in that moment is when I felt the imposter syndrome because I didn't know shit. If I didn't know how to do anything, I would just go on like YouTube and just learn everything I could. I'll never forget it. Like my property was up for sale and this woman out of Canada had come in and I just like analyzed everything from my portfolio, knew all the answers, and she was just rapid fire questioning me on things. And I just remember like sweating. I was in this cardigan and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Like this woman is worth like hundreds of millions of dollars. And here she is. She's going to, cause like at that point it wasn't even on the table of like Gatorbug at this point. So I'm like, I'm not going to have a job because she's not going to think that I'm like smart enough. So I was sweating bullets. And by the end of it, she was just like, I'm very impressed by you. You just feel like we won these awards. We were doing these things that we raised rents, all that stuff. But I was so young that I always felt like I was pretending to be in charge. Because
I didn't know that story. That's fabulous. And I'm really impressed with you.
Oh no, I was literally, I felt so out of place.
I can imagine that's a big thing to swallow of coming into dealing with someone that's so much money to their name.
I feel like as I've gotten older, I've got more secure.
Oh, I would totally agree. You are one of the most like secure people. And I think people think it's arrogant and it's not. You're confident in who you are. And that's actually rubbed off on me. And it's something that I'm so glad that I've been able to develop watching you. And that's made me more confident with our business and with my side hustle of like, nah, I actually know this.
Yeah.
Someone else might know this, but I know it too.
Yeah. In business, almost if you feel confident, it's like, it's cockiness. It's like, I'm not going to speak on things that I don't feel I know, but when I know something, I'm going to speak up and say, hey, like, I feel like confident in my knowledge about this and like my experience behind it. Yeah. So where do you feel like your imposter syndrome really stuck out for you?
I think it's those moments when I get stuck in the opposite of that, where I'm confident, I know this, I can do it. And then all of a sudden it's something and I have no idea. And I think that part of this, honestly, just listening to both of y'all talk, I think part of the imposter syndrome is that always wanting to be better and learn something new. I don't think that people who are very content and complacent feel that. They're just sort of like, okay,
yeah,
I'm here, I'm doing it, versus how can I learn how to do this myself? How can I get to the next level? What can I do now? And I think once you realize what you don't know, it opens up that window for imposter syndrome, but it also opens up, how can I learn? How can I improve it? Which it's like an uncomfortable spot to be in.
And I think that's a great point to even raise, is that so many times when you are learning, you feel like you don't know enough or you're not an expert in your field. So that's where you start feeling that imposter syndrome. No matter what you do, there comes a point you need something else. And that's kind of like how the podcast was created. I think for you, it's picking up Michelle's line and representing that and having your own thing there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I agree. We were planning a wedding for 14 months and I was like, this is over. That was a full-time job. What in the hell am I going to do? And I think we were both feeling that burnout. And I just felt like there's more aspects of retail I don't know, but I do know, and I'm going to get my hands on them.
That was a good transition for you because we had seen it on the other side of buying. So I'm sure that's probably helped you in selling the line and representing the line of knowing what a buyer wants and how they want to be treated and what they're looking for.
Absolutely,
I don't feel like I've had imposter syndrome as much in this realm.
I wouldn't
opening up the Gatorbug.
I wouldn't say so. I feel like I've probably been the one that's dealt with that a little bit more because I did have a job throughout college, and one that turned into an internship, and it turned into a full-time job where I moved down to Atlanta and was a manager. And that's where I dipped my toes into the water of retail. I was able to be very hands-on, but I was young. And I was young when this was started, and I have dealt with that a lot.
Has there been anything that's stuck out to you about like advice that you'd give for imposter syndrome?
I think for sure, don't even hesitate to ask for help. Figure out who those people are that you can ask and ask them. In our first 6 months, I had Sydney and our friend Kelsey on speed dial, and I was calling them like, I think I broke our entire Shopify. What do I click?
No, you're good. That's just Shopify.
So I think where you know someone who has done it before, don't sit there and spin your wheels and get sad that you can't do it. Just ask for the help because someone is most likely in your corner to help you with it. And I think that I'm fortunate to have found those people. And I think that like that's been the game changer.
For sure. You have to find your people who are going to support you during those times. You just have to have confidence in yourself. Stop undermining what you've accomplished. I feel like so many times we were like, okay, well, we didn't hit this marker of what we wanted to hit. So like somehow that invalidates everything that we've done for like the past couple of years. And it's like failures allow you to grow. They allow you to understand where you failed. And just because you didn't hit that doesn't mean that you don't know what you're talking about. I feel like even more so watching people who have succeeded on the first chance versus people who have failed, it's almost like I would trust far more what the people who have failed have said versus the people who have had success or succeeded on that first realm, because sometimes it's just luck and like where you end up and like the circles that you're in that kind of provide that luck for things. And I think one thing we always like say in our business is if we didn't have adversity, it would be weird because literally we opened up the Gatorbug and then COVID hit. And we had found another location in Raleigh. And like COVID hit the Raleigh store right as contracts got signed to start construction. And the next day, everything was shut down. There was just been so much adversity in our story of things. We were like, if some shit isn't hitting the fan, we wouldn't even know probably how to deal with things. If something isn't off, it's not right. The chakras are not aligned.
Exactly.
We picked our opening date and then discovered that they were going to be ripping up our road and redoing the water main and repaving. Yeah, it's always something.
Just another plug for Home for Entertaining, though. They have the most amazing classes. Literally, it's the cutest store. They always have very seasonal items that are adorable. You guys just hit the mark all the time.
I definitely agree. Planning a wedding, registering as a bride, it's overwhelming. And you made the process enjoyable. Really, the last of my friends are getting married in this year, next year. And I'm like, please look at Home for Entertaining, because the way you and Megan have made it feel like home, no pun intended, is everything. It's just that extra layer. You don't see that a lot with business. You don't see that a lot with retail.
Yeah.
But I think y'all do the same way, where I know that I can go in, and the number of times Megan and I have run to Gatorbug the morning of an event.
Megan's like, I've got to shoot. I need something that's neutral.
And we just are like, whoever's in there is going to be helpful, is going to give you an opinion. And I always say with working clothing retail, if someone says everything looks good on me, I don't trust them.
Because it doesn't.
So that's the big thing. Like, I promise you, if something doesn't look, just tell me an actual opinion.
What's my saying in the store? If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. You don't want to go to a clothing store that's like, everything looks amazing on you. doesn't.
It doesn't.
No.
Because it's like if you go out there and it doesn't look amazing, then that's bad on our name. I always tell the girls, it's not about getting the sale. It's about actually finding the piece for somebody.
That's the best compliment I think that we've received too, is like customers come in and they're like, thank you for telling me it did not look good.
And obviously we're not like, that looks like shit.
But like, for the example, if like I'm going to an event and I try on 4 dresses and you just tell me that everyone looks really good, that's not helping me. I'm not there to buy 4 dresses. I need to know which one's going to look best this afternoon.
It's such an emotional thing too. There's such a love and hate relationship for so many people about their body, or just a hate relationship on it. So it's a delicate matter, and being open and honest while being respectful. That's what we try to do.
I agree.
Okay. So this is, I'm going ham on this topic. No holds bar on this. What does fostering community over competition look like to you, Jackie? And when you started the business, do you feel like you had people who supported you versus people who almost saw it as a threat or like hope that you failed?
Yeah, I had both. I had a lot of both. But I think I was like looking at this question earlier and I actually asked Megan. I was like, okay, like I'm curious what you would say. And we both said some of our biggest cheerleaders starting were the people you wouldn't have expected, who kind of came out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
One of our best customers is like a girl that was a couple years younger than me, that we ran in the same circles in high school, but not really. And the first time I posted that we were opening, she was like, I cannot wait. I'm so excited. And she has now just been the biggest support. And it's really cool to see people like that. It reminds me, at least, that people are excited for you. People do like what you're doing. They're very supportive. And I think that it also helped me see which of my friends were truly there to fully support. Because, like I said, that first year, there were times when I was like, hi, Sydney's truffle making class. Hi, we have no one coming to this class. Please show up and roll some chocolate truffles.
And I will, baby. You already know. I'll roll a truffle. I'm going to eat the truffle.
Yes. Other days it was like, Kelsey, I don't know how to print barcode labels. Can you please come teach me?
Kelsey knows all things.
Yes. So it's like those people who weren't afraid to, one, celebrate you even when they're not your tightest people, but two, the people who are your tight people who were not afraid to get in the trenches with you. Those were my biggest people as we're starting. And then I just love the idea of community. Our whole store is about entertaining and community. And to some extent, just knowing there is room for everyone. No one retail store is going to fit everyone's needs. Like,
say it louder, Jackie.
You can't. Like,
say it louder for those
because not everyone understands.
Here, I can't think about y'all as competition, because it's like, if someone's not going to see something at your store and then not buy it at mine, because there's no overlap. It's all about who can help you, because if in Cary there's more shopping and more people excited about coming to Cary to shop, it just helps lift everyone in that community and just not feel the imposter syndrome and alone. And I know Sydney has a lot of thoughts on this, so
I have so many.
Go for it.
So many. I will. Do you want me to go, or do you want to go?
I think you should go.
I'm not holding back, bitches. I'm breaking it open on this one.
And I'm glad. Let me just say, I'm really glad, because I think this is what we need to hear.
Okay. One, starting the boutique allowed me to realize what kind of people would be a part of the Purge and would, like, hands down take you out to get a fucking dollar. I feel like we ran our business very morale based. How we're going to run our business is how we would want done onto us. I'm probably more laid back about the competition part when we first started.
Yes.
Like that didn't bother me because I had already knew what the business was like with that. And I feel like when you get your people, there's just room for everybody. There's so many different businesses out there, and it's just who has what at what time and how they serve your needs at that moment. But there were so many people for that first couple of years that I realized that like we all thought we're family friends and just were backstabbing bitches.
Things that were said
About
our family were vitriolic.
Just
I would never wish it on anyone.
Disgusting shit that was said about our family on multiple levels. Like our like character was in question, like financials were in question. There were so many things that were said about our family that I was just like, you guys are shitty people and you're supposed to be like these amazing part of the community and building this up and Christian and blah, blah, blah. And it's so crazy to me how many of these people that you think are like pillars of the society of our community that are the ones that are behind the mask and veil of like tearing down people. Like it's a clothing boutique. It's a clothing boutique. We are not racing to see who can get to the moon first. I remember this one time we were shooting this clothing line. With clothing, it works in a way of distribution areas. So if someone already has a line and you're within a certain mileage or in the same zip code, you can't carry that line. In Raleigh, we couldn't carry a lot of lines because everybody in North Hills. So we weren't able to put the certain lines, we could have it at the beach. Well, we have all of our clothing shipped out to our warehouse. And so we were shooting the line at the Raleigh store. This, like, I mean, it hadn't been maybe 20 minutes from unpacking the clothing to putting it on our models and shooting outside of the Raleigh store. Like it never hit the clothing racks in the store. I would never put that out because it's not moral. Like when you're investing in those clothing lines, you're putting a lot of money into that. Like maybe one of the girls would put something back that was like a one-off, but it wasn't like intentional. It was like, we very much so ran our business with morality. I remember, I don't even think you were there.
I was en route.
Yeah.
And I got a call on my phone from the rep.
Not even 15 minutes has passed by that I was shooting the girls outside of the store. We took one piece out to shoot the girls in front of the store. And Catherine gets this call that's like, you guys need to take all the items down off the racks. And we're like, we literally are just shooting the piece in front of the store. We're not selling it. Catherine, like the clothing hasn't even hit the stores. And the rep calls and she's like, we have so-and-so on the line who had called us and told us that one of their customers was in the area within the last 20 minutes and they saw clothing on the clothing racks. And like, you guys are selling it. You need to take it down immediately or we're going to rip the line from you. Well, one, you're a fucking liar. Okay. Two, we knew these people who owned another business. And so we were like, listen, like that's not our character. Messaged them immediately, told them we were just shooting the line out in front of the store. There's not anything. I think honestly, there wasn't even enough time that like a customer who had shopped the two locations would have never written the other store to be like, I'm seeing that specific line. Like no one knows that kind of stuff. Like it's not, unless you're in the clothing boutique arena, you're not like, well, that's a protected line by so-and-so. It's just not like that. And so we wrote them directly and said, hey, listen, we're not carrying it. We just shot it. Nothing. They did not respond. And these are grown-ass adults. We were like, we hope that you would know that we would never put your business in that situation. If you have any questions, don't even hesitate to come to us. Like, you don't even have to go to the rep. Come to us and we'll be like, we don't want you to feel uncomfortable. Not a word was whispered. They did not respond. It was a whole thing. And I'm just like, I learned very quickly how cutthroat people are in that business. And it's like, get a fucking grip. It's clothing, people. Like it's clothing. Like there can be room for all of us in this arena. It doesn't have to be just like, I think I learned very quickly if people were going to do that about clothing, how they would treat us. And then we've also, I feel like, had really great luck with some bigger boutiques who've been very supportive of us carrying similar lines and like us just carrying different designs or different things like that.
Absolutely. Shout out Monkeys of Raleigh.
Monkeys of Raleigh.
Joe, you're always great to work with and you played fair. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll never forget that.
And I think too, part of that comes in, I'm like sitting now, I'm like, how much do I even open my mouth? But I had some of my most negative around opening with another business that wouldn't even be perceived as competition to mine. And I think that was very eye-opening for me.
When people you consider in your inner circle, and they're the ones who are not clapping the hardest for you, you need to get them out of your inner circle, because those are the people that are behind the veil hoping that you fail so they seem like they're better, because they are so insecure with themselves that they don't know how to handle when competition, or what they view as competition, when someone else is succeeding. There has never been a moment in my life that any of our friends have succeeded that I felt like that was even competition.
Not at all.
And there's people who've been classified as the same thing, and I have never clapped harder. Like, I want you to succeed, which is, it's so strange to me.
It's so much more fun when like everyone is excited about it. So I think that it makes everyone better to work together, that it's like, if those people aren't cheering for you as a business owner, you don't have time for that. Like, you have limited time, that those relationships that you're putting time and energy into need to be a mutually beneficial and respectful and loving and cheering relationship. Like, there's not time for like, let me try to get this person to like me, or let me try to like maintain this friendship if they're not there.
And it's so hard because you want them in your corner because you've been there for them and you're hoping that they have a different response. And some people just don't want to see you succeed. They're there for when they're succeeding and you're supporting them, but they're not there for you when you're succeeding and maybe they're not doing their best. I just think you have to support your people and stop being insecure with yourself. And honestly, I think it's just like a mental thing. It is. Sometimes you just have to talk yourself down of being like, someone else's success does not mean that I'm a failure. And sometimes you just are a failure. That's okay.
Just learn to accept it.
Right now, this month might not be your time, but maybe in 6 months, it will be.
It might be. And I think too, once you decide who's in your corner, you are also in their corner. And there are some things that might not make sense, but you need to show up how you would want them to show up for you. So it's those situations of what needs to be done, what do you need support with, and showing up, and you're going to be excited about it. Yeah. I think Sydney taking 3 pasta classes is like the epitome of this. Like, does she want to make pasta from scratch? No. Like, she's never going to do that on her own.
I just love being around my peoples.
And she loves showing up and doing it and participating.
Jackie is completely such a humble being, because the shit that you have done for other people and them not show up for you is disgusting to me. So I'm going to put that out on there of like the way that you have supported other people's businesses night and day when you had a full-time job and you were doing all this other stuff and showing up for them and their successes, baking them cakes and doing all this stuff and coming out and supporting them financially and showing up for events and stuff like that. I just think it's crazy when people don't show up for you. And it's like, this is the hard part of, I feel like when you get older, knowing those who are showing up for you is such, you have to draw those boundaries because those are the people who are not down for you.
I totally agree. It's hard. It's really, really hard.
I feel like sometimes too, like you might be that person who's being the asshole and you don't realize it in the moment, and maybe you'll learn afterwards.
It may kill you, but they pay it.
You can either have that conversation or know when to not care, because I had a blow up one and I remember telling Sydney about it and Sydney's like losing it for me. And I was like, listen, I don't care and I'm moving on. And Sydney was like, I'm not. I am not.
Where I have an issue is the people who pretend to be your supporters and show up based off of them wanting to look better. We all have our asshole moments. I'll be the first one to lead that of like, but I think it's how you show up when you pretend to be something you're not. Like, I'm supporting these other women who are in my circle. You're showing up for the photo shoot, but you're not there during the like hard parts.
Yes, exactly. We always say at work, who are the people who will open the boxes in the basement with you?
Yeah.
Everyone wants to come work at a shop when it's cute and fun and you're taking pictures and you're having an event. But who's going to show up on a Saturday morning and open inventory with you?
The big thing with the community part is like, it's just having those people that will be there and have your back when you do need it. Like you guys have your own clique. Like we are definitely there for you for whatever you guys need. And when you have those kind of people that will show up for you, like I was talking to somebody and they were like, how did you start the podcast? And I was like, well, it's been kind of like this idea going on forever. And then we all went on this like group trip, and I laughed because we used to, so we told all of them, I'm not a big reader at all. And by big reader, I think I've read 4 books in my whole entire life.
Me and Jacqueline can be very homebody, crafty hobby. We are content sitting doing nothing for days. So for our birthday for 3 years now, we've been like, let's do a fun trip. So we're like, okay, we're going to the beach and we're doing nothing for a weekend. Sydney doesn't do nothing well.
I don't. My ADD doesn't to happen. I'm like, I can't. Like, I can relax, but like, not.
And I'm embarrassed to say I'm right behind her.
Yeah, like I don't think we're like going and like I'm like, okay, I can sit for a couple hours, and then I'm like, we gotta go somewhere.
But that prompted us being like, Sydney can talk. What is Sydney's new activity going to be? Yeah. And now we're on a podcast.
There were literally so many books and puzzles.
The puzzles.
The puzzle. I don't think they broke out the books in full force until afterwards.
We did one puzzle.
Wow.
It was enough. It felt like centuries.
Wasn't it a 1,000-piece puzzle?
I don't know. I'm going to find the video of Sydney saying, I have spent days of my life on this puzzle, and we had been there for less than 1 day.
It had not been. It had been a full day and a half at that point. Okay. And it felt like centuries. I'm like, who in the hell does puzzles for day? Hold on. Time out. We get through literally 999 pieces. Okay.
This was painful.
Now they're telling me, they're trying to convince me that this whole time that this is fucking fun. It wasn't. Okay. Like I would rather have been locked into an insane asylum. And it was fun in a way of like, okay, everyone's pitching and doing this, but not in the way that I wanted to lead it. Like I wanted to literally just lay the last piece of the puzzle and be like, haha, look at what I did, you know? But anyway, so we get this and the last piece of the puzzle is not to be found fucking anywhere. And when I tell you, I have never, now this is after I had drugged them out to this like shithole bar for 30 minutes. Okay. I don't even think I've left a bar before 10:30, but we left the bar before 10:30. Okay. And then we made it back home. I digress. That's a whole different episode. But anyway, I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I'm so ready to I've exclaimed to everybody that I'm putting this last puzzle piece in. Okay.
This is going to be the best part of the podcast.
We're to the last puzzle piece. Okay. And the puzzle piece is not fucking there.
Where was the puzzle piece? Do we know?
Okay, so I'm sitting there and Jacqueline's like, maybe the puzzle piece is at my house. Nelly at my house. I said, well, you better call Josh, who is her husband. I said, you better call Josh and tell him he needs to drive his ass here with that puzzle piece because I'm not leaving here without that puzzle piece in place.
And Jacqueline's just like smiling and giggling about
She was also drunk.
And whatever dive bar you're thinking of, like lower it a peg.
It wasn't even that bad. I don't feel like it was that bad in the dive bars that I've been to.
I'm going to be honest, Jackie. I walked in and I was like, oh, my people. You know, like I kind of felt.
But to them, it was bad.
To them, it was bad.
To us, it was like, when you've been to Tackle Box.
When you've been to a Carteret County beach bar, nothing's lower than low.
We were basically at a Carteret County beach bar. Different county.
Kind of, but not really. That one was a little nicer, I feel like. But anyway.
Karaoke really up there.
Back to the puzzle piece. Oh, the way my face was like, I thought I was going to commit murder.
I was a little worried.
I did. I was like, are you fucking joking me? We're down to the last one. You guys have convinced me for the last day and a half that we need to like literally kill this puzzle and we don't even have the full puzzle. Finally, by the grace of God, Jacqueline, Jacqueline finds the puzzle and she's like, oh, no, here it is. And I'm like, ah. It felt like the Holy Spirit was with us in that moment when I pushed the puzzle piece down.
Like, she didn't even realize it was this big of an issue. Meanwhile, Sydney's ready to like make Josh drive to the beach from Raleigh.
I literally was like, Jacqueline, I don't know what you have to do, but you're going to have to call Josh because he's going to drive this puzzle piece because I've spent the last day and a half, which it felt more like 2. Okay. All right. So what is the biggest thing you learned and what's your advice for someone just getting started?
Is this in business?
Yeah. Business.
Be yourself, because if you do not and you try to fit into something, I think it's okay to try to conform at times, but you got to remain true to who you are, because it's really hard to walk that back. And also, please ask for help. Nobody has all the answers. Ask for help. I think it is a huge sign of intelligence when people say, I don't know. I don't know.
Where do you feel like you were not yourself?
I think coming into the Raleigh space, where we live was our second store. I felt like I had to be somebody that, I want to say maybe wasn't who I was, but for 2 years, I don't feel like I knew who I was.
Maybe like a facet because of like the area that you're raised in.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's what the ITB does to you, ladies and gents.
It does. And I'm about to have some women clutch some pearls. I was not raised ITB. We moved when I was in high school. And that gave me a different perspective on it. And I think it's, Sydney, you are who you are. That's rubbed off on me. And also, as I've grown, I've hit 30. I care what people think, but at the same time, I don't care. I say the 3 F's. You don't fund, you don't finance, and I can't say the others. So I don't care. The day that you do any of those for me, I will care.
I think it's difficult because when you're raised in that social economics class too of things, and the ITB has such a strong hold for social hierarchies of, okay, if we're not at the Carolina Country Club, if we're not seen in these or around these groups, or we're not seen a certain light,
we're not at these 5 churches, then we're shit.
Yeah.
That's just not the case.
And when you start, listen, there's so many amazing people within those realms. There's people who are just like these social climbing fucks, honestly, if we're getting into it.
No.
That you're just like, I don't admire anything about them. But again, I can 100% see where you're coming from. I was raised around that because of my aunt and uncle.
Yeah.
So you can understand where that is. And I don't want to say there's no importance on that. But I don't think that at the end of the day, when you're dead, you're not going to be like, oh my God, thank God these people, you know what I mean? Like,
they accepted me finally.
Yeah. Just because I had this amount of money and because I was a member of a country club.
And that's,
but it's hard.
It is hard. And I think Maya Angelou said it best, and I'll probably butcher this, is they'll remember you for how you treated people and the people you showed up for. And that's so true. And I think as I've hit 30, I'm really happy with the person I am. And it's made me want to share with young girls, be who you are. Growing pains are hard, man. They're hard. Competition, imposter syndrome, it's difficult, but lean into who you are, find your village, and you're going to thrive. You're going to thrive. I always say there's room for everyone, just not at my table.
Catherine always says, like, when we don't align with people, like, I want you to eat, just not at my table.
I want you to eat, but not at my table.
So much is based off of status. And I get why it's like that, but I don't think at the end of the day, when you look at the people around you with people who worry about status, they're not your people.
They're not. No.
They're not going to be in the trenches with you when you have a penny to your name.
Absolutely not.
Which is hard to reconcile sometimes. But there's also connections that you can make in those realms too.
It absolutely. So
there's some amazing people in them.
There absolutely are. There absolutely are.
Okay, so Jackie, what's your piece of advice?
Oh, I think I'm like giggling. Yeah, there's people everywhere who are not the best. Like,
we know a couple,
but I
one of them.
I tell a lot of people, as you're starting, especially like you're saying with younger girls, I tell a lot of people that are like our part-time girls or girls that I still know out at Elon, you're not gonna work at your first job forever.
Yeah.
And that is a hard pill to swallow a lot of the times, because if you've gone to school and you land your dream job, that's just what you think your dream job is at 22. And you're probably not going to be there forever. And I think just that like ability to be like, okay, this isn't it anymore. What am I going to do to learn, to change? If I wouldn't have done that, I have no clue what I'd be doing right now, because I'd probably be miserable still being a teacher. And that was hard to be like, okay, yeah, I loved this. I loved the idea of this. I loved getting my degree. I loved my fellowship. I loved everything about it. But 2 years in, I was like, I'm not going to continue doing this.
I feel like you almost want to double down on things because you're like, oh, I've spent all this time and money in doing these things. And I feel like if I back away from it, people will look at me like I'm a failure. And so you're like, I've got to try harder.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Or like, holy cow, quitting my corporate job to start the family business. Like,
which I know was a big thing on you.
Huge.
That's huge. That's a life-changing decision. How long, personal question for you, Jackie, what was the time that it took you to come around to that, to recognize it, accept it, and make those moves too? Because I think a lot of girls think it's instantaneous. What's the time frame? Because there's no rule book for this. What do you think?
Or it's like, in all way, shape, or form, I had been very successful in my corporate role. I had been there for 8 years. I was like a senior level manager. I was doing all the things. And I would always joke that most of the time when I was in meetings with a bunch of 40-something-year-old white dudes. It's so bad, but that's the world of tech and sales. Like,
so the one amazing thing about technology is sometimes it doesn't always work. So in this clip, we lost Catherine's camera and we had to begin again, but the conversation is still hilarious. So keep watching or listening.
Back to Delilah. What was her name?
Delilah.
But I know, but what was the whole shtick?
I thought it was the Delilah.
I think it was just her name.
But wasn't there like some like, ba-da-da-da-da?
I'm Delilah. I remember the people that would call in.
Like, I'm having a hard time with my life.
And she's like, hey, I'm thinking of you. I'm going to play the newest Sarah McLachlan. Hold on.
Yes.
The arms of the angel.
It was like, your day's gonna get better, and then the most depressing song.
But I love it because it was like, my husband has cheated on me, my dog died, my mom has cancer. I was like, don't worry, everything is gonna be okay. Let me play this song for you to be like Phil Collins. And you're like, thank you. This makes everything suddenly so much better.
Actually worse now.
What's your advice for someone just getting started
in a business? This is where we were talking about the timeline.
Yes.
That's where
I wanted you to touch on that because I've gotten this question recently, but how long did it take you to decide on deciding on this idea and putting plan into action? Was it back and forth a little bit for you?
Yeah, so we had summer of 2023 was when my mom initially had the idea. We had our crazy beach trip. Then we we met every single Tuesday night for months. And it was Tuesday nights. We had our little family meeting and we were going through the nitty gritty. I think that exactly what you're saying, people see it as like, oh, I'm going to do this and it's done. It was the researching names to see what's trademarked versus what's available on social media versus website domains. We operate on a business system called EOS. Y'all would actually love it. And it has all of these like tools and processes and what's your cadence for a meeting. And we would not be where we are without that. For us, it was, with it being family, we really knew we wanted something that could structure it other than everyone's opinions coming to the table. So we met every Tuesday for at least 6 months through the new year. And it was at that Christmas, January time that we started to solidifying location, solidifying what staffing was going to be. And at that point, we didn't know, are we going to hire a manager to run this? Which looking back, I'm like, holy cow, that would have never worked if we would have just hired someone to be the manager of the shop type thing. But it was going to be like, is someone leaving their job? Because at that point, like, my mom was still the principal designer running her design firm. Megan was a teacher. My brother works corporate finance. Dad was working corporate in a job that he hated, but corporate job brings the corporate benefits. Those things that like you have to think about during these changes. So that was a lot of the conversation of who would make that jump, what do we need to hire for, and Megan at that point was like, I think I do want to be out of the classroom. I was torn because I loved what I was doing. I really enjoyed my company. I adored my team. And I had done it for 8 years. I had like worked up in it. And in like the end of that January, I went to one of our leadership meetings. They had us offsite in Orlando, right next to Disney Springs. We got to do a day in Disney, and turns out it was this wonderful leadership retreat to inform us that we were doing a complete reorg of our organization. My direct reports were switching, our responsibilities were switching, and to me, that was okay, I'm okay with leaving. It became a very natural, I wasn't sure I agreed with the direction it was going.
Yeah.
And I was like, knowing we have Home for Entertaining in the works, it is moving forward. I don't know if I want to sit and deal with all the mess of this. I'd rather deal with my own mess. And that's that difference of owning the business. So
interesting to hear you say that, Jackie. My dad was in the same position, God, 30 years ago. And he had that light bulb moment too of the company is now defunct and they aren't going to pay for an MBA. And he said, I'm out of here.
And that's really what drove his business was like, you're not going to invest in me. So I'm going to do that. And it was kind of like a joke when he started his own business, he's not going to do anything. And then he started stealing and poaching their clients one by one. And who's the fucking joke now?
The defunct company.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have made that switch if that hadn't happened, but that was January. This is the crazy side of corporate. During all these changes, to an extent, like you said, it's numbers, not people.
Yeah.
I then worked for the better part of 4 months, knowing I was going to be leaving, phasing myself out.
Yeah.
Like, as part of the reorg, I was like, oh, it would be great if I trained her on how to do this. Oh, we should do this on all the teams. And it wasn't noticed, which was alarming to me. I worked through the end of May in 2023. And then I took June off. I just gave myself a little break and then technically started on payroll full-time in the business in July. So a full year after.
As we grew and we had like one location to 3, we took a hard look at things and we're like, this is not how we want our customers experience, because we were in the stores all the time. And then once we grew bigger, we were doing other things, marketing or purchasing. So we weren't in the store as much. And then you're hiring these people who you're training them as best you can is to be like, this is the mission and this is how I want you to handle customers. But it's not their business. They're not going to put in the effort that you do.
And if they do, you're damn lucky, and don't let them go. Know their value. But you're so right.
I know. It's exactly what, I forget which one of you said it earlier, but it's like in those jobs when you're not the owner, you look around for the person, the more adulty adult, like who's the one in charge? Like, whereas when it's your business, it's you. So you put in that extra attention and care. When it's not, you're like, oh, well, Sydney's going to do this.
For me, the biggest thing that I learned is knowing when to pivot when something isn't working.
I'm so glad you said that.
Because it's hard, because sometimes I think you wrap your pride until you've created this plan. You're almost dead set, not being reactive to every little thing, but being like proactive about how you're going to pivot when you need to, is especially in the retail business. One day you could be selling just clothing and that's enough. And the next it's not enough, because people are not spending money on that. They're now spending money on permanent jewelry, was the thing that popped up in the last couple of years. That came out of nowhere. You have these women who are coming out for a couple pop-up shows on a weekend and making like $150,000 like for the year. It's really about being proactive about that stuff, not just passing it off. Weeks matter, you know?
You're so right.
Being open to the idea that like your initial ideal of how you think things might run might need to change. Also, just keeping a positive attitude with things. I think so often we measure ourselves against these huge milestones, and if we don't hit them, we're, oh my God, we haven't had the success. So often when you look at that, very few business owners see the trajectory of 0 to 100 over a year or two process. When you have a great sales day and you have those record days, celebrating those small wins and being able to have success, because if you don't, you are going to burn out very quickly.
I agree with you, and your team will too.
Because you're in this rat race to get to there. And as a business owner, obviously you have your bottom dollar of like what you need to make. But when you hold your team to that, back in July, we had to make that hard call where we had to let go of a couple people who have been with us for years.
We did. And I think people think it's easy for business owners. It's absolutely not, because we've built those relationships and we value their loyalty and them, and you get to know them. But if it's not serving the business, that's the bottom line. And it's hard to say, this isn't working for me.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of chutzpah to be like, this was great, but it's not now.
Oh, also drawing your boundaries. Allow it to be enough. You don't have to work 24/7, because when you work 24/7, you like literally kill yourself and you become not passionate about what you're working towards. Go on the vacation. But if you are closed for a week, no one is going to die.
It's fine.
It's not going to be the end. And if it is the end of your business, then it's not the right fit.
Then it's a God or a higher calling telling you that maybe this wasn't the long-term path you needed to be on. I'm glad you said that too. Draw your boundaries, whether that is employer to employee or family working together. Draw that boundary. It's huge.
That's one thing in the past couple of years. I'm like, you know, as a single mom and not like having another partner to help. I spent a lot of years of his like first 6 years of his life not there for every moment, and like they're working until 7 or 8. And that's been my thing in the past year, is like, when it's Sterling's time, I've got to be home and be there for him.
Absolutely. And right now I can close at 7 and I should, but I think that's so beautifully said.
Was reading a book, Sydney. It was a great book. But in the book, it said that the people who have issues with your boundaries are the ones that are negatively impacted by the boundaries.
Yep.
Because a lot of people, if you set a boundary, they're like, that makes sense. I'd love to support you in that. It's how you're prioritizing your time or your day. The people who are like, what do you mean you can't stay until 7 to close the shop, are frustrated by the boundary because it impacts their scheduling. So I think that I really like seeing that, because it helps me when other people are setting a boundary and saying, okay, how do we make this work for everyone?
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today on our podcast, What's the Situation? Thank you so much, Jackie and Catherine, for being our amazing guest.
Sydney, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. We've got to dig into more. If you guys have any questions about any specifics of owning a business, then we are here for you. Bye. Love you guys.
Fuck that shit, listen, ayy, look, cash flowing, pockets growing, wake up, blessed every morning, just in case y'all didn't notice, I'm fucking shit up in this bitch and everybody knows it.